Hey everybody, it's Carlos. Welcome to the channel, PC747. That's Pilot Carlos. 747, before I started flying the 777, I had been flying the 74. By the way, this 777 here is taxiing into Nagoya, and I am waiting to fly it to Los Angeles. So yes, how did the journey begin into getting into a triple? Well, I had been flying the 74 for several years, and it was a good company with good people. It was a non-union company, and it was a little tough because the rest periods and the lack of a schedule really wore me down over time. Sometimes I might fly, for example, from LA to Guam, have only 10 hours on the ground in Guam, and then we'd be charging again, going to South Dakota and then over to Washington, D.C. So sleep is one of those things that if you have a deficit, you have to make it up somewhere. And I just, over time, cumulatively built up a bigger and bigger deficit. I would be gone for 18, 17 days, which is a long stretch, but rather normal in the ACMI world of air cargo. And then I'd be home for 2 weeks, which was great. It would always take me about 4 to 5 days to recover. And the longer I did it, the worse my condition got as far as sleep deprivation and exhaustion. And my family started voicing their concerns and whatnot. And I was concerned too. I mean, I was flying all over the world. I was flying to some cool places. This is Sydney right here with those funny birds that you're looking at right now. And here I am on a tour boat in Sydney Harbor. And anyway, so after a while, the novelty of flying a 7.4 became less novel. And I decided, I should really try something that isn't quite so tough. And so I did an interview with another company, Kalitta, and I did a phone interview with them. There's the Opera House. Can you see it? It's actually 2 opera houses. Did you know that? It's not 1. It's actually 2. So I did a phone interview, and it went well, and they hired me. And I went out and did 2 weeks of company indoc training in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And it's a fire hose of information. It was a combination of company-specific information. A lot of paperwork was being filled out. We were also being introduced to the aircraft cockpits by being seated in non-motion mock-up simulators. And we were practicing things like cockpit flows, checklist utilization. And while all this was going on, we were receiving a lot of information about the company, international procedures, fueling procedures, performance calculations, all sorts of rules and regulations. It was a lot, but there was more. We were also required to complete an online 777 systems program that had been approved by the FAA. We had to, and it was a systems program covering all the systems on the aircraft. So we had a lot of things to do. And that lasted for 2 weeks, and we collaborated with other classmates to study and to review checklists and things like that. We didn't work much on weekends, we just reviewed, but during the week we continued doing all of those things. Kalitta has an interesting and rather cool training program. It's called AQP. That's Advanced Qualification Procedures. It's a more recent thing that's come up. It's designed to increase the chances that people pass their training. And you're just supposed to go through different gates. At Kalitta, there were 7 gates that each of us had to go through. The first gate was an oral test, one-on-one, for 75 minutes or so about the aircraft, and you had to answer as many of these questions as you could, and hopefully you got most of them right. And then there were other gates that we had to go through. At the time I went through Kalitta, they only had one 777 simulator in Ypsilanti. So they were contracting with a training center down in Miami for us to use some simulators down there. And it was winter time, and I sure as heck didn't want to be in Ypsilanti during the winter for 6 weeks. And I happened to be the most senior class member because I was the oldest. That's how it works. If you're the oldest, you get first pick. And I chose Miami because I thought, man, when I'm not in a box flying around, I'd much rather be in Miami in the wintertime. And I was, and it was wonderful. I'm not going to lie. While the training was fun, it was also really stressful. Do you remember how I mentioned AQP gates? Well, there were just more AQP gates that we had to go through. And I went through those gates as well. For anyone who's done typical flight training, the flight tests that you go through typically consist of the whole gamut of things, from emergencies to engine failures and electrical and God knows what else. But with AQP, since you're going through different gates, they cover a lot of that stuff, and it's spread out through many different gates. So what was really interesting, when it was time for us to take our type rating check rides, it wasn't like my previous type rating checks where they basically threw the kitchen sink at us and gave us all sorts of emergencies. We had already demonstrated competency in all those things, all those failures, prior to getting to the check ride. So it was really kind of a relief. For my 777 check ride, I was the FO with another guy going through his check ride, and we were flying from Los Angeles up to San Francisco with just one anomaly. Nothing major, just one anomaly. And we had to handle that anomaly, go through the checklist, go through all the normal procedures of a flight from point A to point B and land. And then it was my turn to go fly. I don't even remember what the anomaly was, but when I took off from San Francisco, it was serious enough that we had to turn around, come back, and land in San Francisco. Now, I'll tell you, it wasn't a perfect check ride. I don't think any check ride ever is. The mistake that both of us did make, both going up there and coming back, is neither of us noticed during taxi, prior to takeoff, that the cross-feed switches were in the on position. Well, that was a check ride, and we got our type ratings, but we weren't done. We both still had to finish OE, operating experience. That's where you go out with check airmen on the line. My very first OE flight was from Los Angeles to Leipzig, Germany. And because it was ACMI cargo and the 777, of course, we took off at 3 o'clock in the morning out of LA, which is normal for cargo mostly. And the instructor was very thorough and very good and very tough. And he was asking me all sorts of questions about procedures and policies, and but instead of spending just 10 hours in Leipzig like I did with my previous company, we spent 26 hours, which was really nice. It was a big change having a company that had a union, so we had a lot more rest time. The other thing that was really nice was Kalitta has two types of flying that they do. They have charter, which is what I was doing before, mostly in the 747, but some 777. And what I was flying was DHL contract. Actually, 4 of their 777s were actually contracted with DHL. DHL owned one of them. And we were just doing DHL flights, scheduled cargo. There would be ones from LA to Leipzig at the same departure time every single week, several days a week. There would be another one from Hong Kong down to Australia. And then it would stay down there for 3 days, then it would come back to Hong Kong. There was another one from Leipzig to Hong Kong. And there were many others. So it was really, really great having a schedule for a change. And that helped me. So then from Leipzig, we went on to Hong Kong. And from Hong Kong, we went back to Cincinnati. And then I also did other legs. Sometimes I would fly from Cincinnati to Korea, Incheon, Korea. That was a long one. Actually, the longest leg I ever did was from Cincinnati to Incheon. It was over 15 hours. One thing that was really cool about the triple is you could have it almost fully loaded and fly nonstop, a lot further than you can on the 747. Previously on the 747, when I would fly anywhere from Asia to the United States with a full load, we always had to make a technical stop, a tech stop, in Anchorage. And so it was really strange to take off from Asia and to fly past Anchorage every single time and go nonstop to the United States. It was awesome. So OE lasts typically several weeks to a month and a half or so, maybe more for a couple people that are taking a little while to get up to speed, and then you're checked off and you're good to go. And you'll find that once you're on the line, you'll fly very, very little because they got to train a bunch of other people. So you will assist a lot with other things, the coffee, and you'll be doing things around the aircraft, the walk around, the pre-flight, the paperwork, all those things. You'll be helping the captain as much as possible, and the FO, offering them drinks, heating up food for them, and things like that. And you're also watching them carefully to make sure they don't make any mistakes, because your job really is to back them up. When you're watching them, you have to be careful not to speak too soon. You got to give them some time to catch their mistakes before you speak up and back them up. It's been a great experience. I'm thankful to so many for all of them. Thanks so much for watching. Take care now.